Yo, what's up everyone? Back for a Week 7 video. The NFL season is flying by. We are almost halfway there, but let's keep it going. NBA season is upon us, so I'm super pumped for NBA, but I'm still going to be posting NFL videos during NBA season. So on this Sunday slate, let's start it off here. You can drop a like and subscribe down below before we get started. And you can check out the website if you want, links in description. At quarterback here, Deshaun Watson is your highest priced guy at $7,000. He's been playing amazing as of late, just been putting up monster scores, 31. Even though he had one passing touchdown, he got it done with his legs. He's up to 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. So that just gives him such a high floor, the ability to just take off and run and get into the end zone with your legs, because you get 6 points from that. And then he still has great receivers to throw to. He could have had a bigger game with Will Fuller dropping a couple touchdowns that would have put him probably over 40 fantasy points. I think he's a really good option here if he can get up to him at 7,000. Lamar Miller, I think, is a pretty good play too. He got no passing touchdowns, got it done with his legs too. So I like mobile quarterbacks to give you added upside, added floor. The problem is both of those guys are pretty expensive. I would probably go with Watson over Lamar Jackson just because I think Watson and the Texans' offense is much better, and they're going to put up a lot of points this week. Another running quarterback that gives you a lot of upside here. Draftkings did a good job of pricing all of these guys up, even Wilson. So even Josh Allen. You get all these 5 guys that are very mobile quarterbacks here. Of that group, I think Watson really sticks out, and I think you can go Kyler Murray and even Josh Allen here. Those are my 3 out of that 5 group. Allen is he throws a lot of interceptions, but he can also really have a big game because he's going to take off like at least 7 to 10 times a game. But I usually like to go kind of cheap at quarterback. I think Matt Ryan has just been amazing this season, even with the interceptions. Just has a super high floor, thrown for over 300 passing yards every single game, which is super impressive. I don't think any other quarterback has done that. And he has 15 touchdown passes. Lots of good options for him to throw to. I think against his Rams defense, can definitely fire him up. Goff sucked last week, but this Falcons defense hasn't been able to stop anyone. I think he's in a bounce back spot. And if you're going cheap, I like Jacoby Brissett. You're getting another guy that has mobility, but you're getting him at a much cheaper price tag. Obviously, he's not going to hit his ceiling as often as the other guys, but before Week 5, in the first 4 weeks, he had 10 touchdown passes, which was tied for the league lead. Against KC, just struggled a bit as they went with a more of a running attack approach. But against this Houston team, I expect them to have to throw the ball a lot because they're very good against the run, and I'm expecting a shootout in this one. So I'm liking Jacoby Brissett here. I'm going to have him at 5,600 as of now. I think he gives you the high floor with the high ceiling in a matchup like this at home. At running back, there's a couple that really just stick out here, like Dalvin Cook at 8,000 against this Detroit team. Very bad again on the ground. They've kind of struggled in all aspects of the defense this season. Dalvin Cook is going to get a lot of work, even out of the backfield. Catching passes, he gets work. Probably one of the top plays at running back, especially if Barkley's out. You can definitely go to David Johnson too. I think I would probably go with Cook, who's a little more than him, only $200 more if you could only fit in one. And then I like Fournette a lot at 7,000. Just getting so many touches. You're getting 25 plus touches, 25 to 30 touches for him every game, which just gives you such a high floor. And if he can get into the end zone against his Cincinnati defense, I could see him break off a couple of monster runs, just like he did against the Broncos. They're just so bad defensively on the ground. The worst team in the league, giving up almost 200 yards on the ground, and nobody really gets a lot of rushing attempts besides Fournette on the team. So I love those 2 guys. They are my top plays. And then if you're looking at some more value, you could look at like Chris Carson, 6,500. Marlon Mack at 6,000. Even though it's a tough defense, they do like to use him a lot. They like to give him 20 to 25 touches at least. And at the goal line, he's going to get the work. Melvin Gordon has looked awful, averaging like under 2.5 yards per carry. But he's still getting he's going to have a big game before the season ends, and very soon I would expect. Matchup against the Titans isn't ideal. They're a pretty good defense, but his price tag is really cheap. I would look at him for tournaments. And then you could look at like Tevin Coleman, who's gotten a lot of work since he's been back from injury at 56. Devontae Freeman, he's been getting into the end zone through the air, 3 touchdown passes, receptions through the last couple of games. High floor because he has receiving upside, and he's been getting 10 plus carries on the ground every week. And then you can look at like carry on at 51, Josh Jacobs at only 5,000, a really good play too. So lots of good options at running back at if you're paying up or going value. Like I said, the two that I think are the play for cash at least are Dalvin Cook and Leonard Fournette. Both are in incredible spots. And then you pair that with a quarterback with another guy that can run a little bit in Brissett. Kind of like where this is heading. At the wide receiver position, I think there's a lot of good value here in the mid-range. If you're paying up, I would probably go up to like Hopkins against this Colts defense. He hasn't had a big game yet, but it's coming. He's been getting a lot of targets. Hasn't broke a big one, and I just don't believe he's gonna have more than 2 touchdown passes very soon. 2 touchdown receptions very soon. He's just so good of a player, and in the red zone, they do like to look at his way a lot. So give me Hopkins if you're paying up. I definitely play him over Michael Thomas, who's facing a tough Bears defense. And then I think Julio's fine too, but there's just a lot of bodies for Matt Ryan to throw to. So we're not going to see like monster games from Julio every week. It's probably going to be a handful of times because they have Calvin Ridley, they have Hooper, they have Sanu. Meanwhile, on Houston, it's just Hopkins and Fuller for the most part. Cook is very cheap, 7,400. Just struggled last week. It was mainly the entire offense struggled due to Jared Goff. At 74 against the Falcons defense, he's definitely in play. And then if you like some cheap options here, maybe if AJ Green if we know he's not going to be limited, he could be a decent option against the Jags. They just traded away Jalen Ramsey, so you don't have to worry about him. He hasn't even been playing in the games, but Green should have a much easier matchup against the Jaguars cornerbacks. None of them are as good as Ramsey would have been. And then Fuller here, I think you could definitely go back to him. He could have had another slate-breaking performance. He dropped like 2 easy touchdowns, and there were 2 deep touchdowns too. So Fuller at 6,200, I definitely like him. Fitzgerald is cheap, but he just like a high floor. Doesn't really have a high ceiling that much. But he's fine. I think in cash, you could probably play him in tournaments. You'd probably play like Will Fuller. Love T.Y. Hilton to pair with Jacoby Brissett. T.Y. is just so cheap this week. 5,900 for him. Doesn't really make that much sense. On FanDuel, he's over 7,000. So definitely think there's a misprice on DraftKings with T.Y. Hilton. Robert Woods, also fine. I think the Rams-Atlanta game could be a nice stack. Woods is pretty cheap at 59. I like Golladay at 58. If Shepard is back, that's a decent option too. A lot of good options in the mid-range here. Boyd, I'll probably play him if AJ Green is out again. Even though Robinson's probably getting matched up against Lattimore, he's very cheap at 5,500. But Lattimore has shut down a couple of guys in the past couple weeks, so that's kind of a risky play, but it could pay off in tournaments. And then if you're playing like Josh Allen, look at John Brown. The last couple of weeks, a wide receiver in this range has kind of broke the slate. It could be John Brown this week just because he is facing this dreadful Miami defense who's giving up big play after big play to receivers. He could have a huge game like he did in week 1 just because he is their number 1 receiver. And then there's just so many guys to the mid-range here, so I think I'm going to be paying up at running back and then going with these value mid-range receivers this week that are in really good spots, starting with T.Y. Hilton to pair with Jacoby Brissett. And then I'm really liking like John Brown against this Miami defense, getting 2 speed guys with monster upside. And then like other guys I'm looking at are Will Fuller at 6,200 on the other side to pair with, to run him back on the Houston side. Fitzgerald, Chark at 6,000. And then you got like Golladay, Tate. A lot of good options here. I think you can probably even play one of those guys in your flex. Right now I'm going to go Will Fuller here, 6,200. Maybe people won't play him after. I didn't want to play him that last week because I thought he was going to be very popular due to people chasing the last week's performance. But since he didn't get there last week because he dropped some passes, I think people might be off of him this week. But he's still getting massive targets, 9 and 16. Kenny Stills is banged up with his hamstring. If he's out, that's just opened up a lot of targets for guys like Kiki Kuti in the slot, and even Fuller's been getting a benefit with Stills out. At 62, he's getting up there in price tag, but he definitely has the talent to really break the slate, and especially in tournaments. Against this Indianapolis defense, I like him at 62. And then in the flex, you go play like another cheap receiver. So I'm really liking this like 5 to 6K range out receiver. Lots of good options. At tight end, Kittle is your top play at 6,700. They kind of fooled us saying that he was battling a groin injury and might not make it through the whole game. All he did was put up 8 catches on 8 targets for over 100 yards. Hooper's fine at 53. He's just been so good this season, even though it's against the Rams. And Hunter Henry's probably going to be the popular play, coming off of an 8-catch, 2-touchdown performance. They said he was going to be limited, but he played a bunch of the snaps. He played most of the snaps at tight end, and Rivers looked his way almost all game. So you got to like him at 4,000. Very cheap. Don't mind like Everett for tournaments, but I think I'm really looking at like 4,000 for Hunter Henry, probably the play this week. And then at defense, if you're going cheap here, we got cheap defenses again under 2,000 this week. Out of that group, not a ton to really love. I think maybe you could look at like probably the cheapest defense I think I would probably go with is maybe the Giants, just because they're at home at 2,500. I don't mind the Seattle defense. They've been good the last couple weeks. Lamar Jackson does struggle at times with turnovers, so I could go there at 2,800. And then I really like the Bears at 3,000. They're so cheap. They're way too talented to be at 3,000 against Teddy Bridgewater here at home. They should be able to keep this game a low-scoring affair. And then if you're paying up at defense a little bit, you could go with like the Jags against Cincy. And you can go with the Bills, who are probably the top defense on the board. Them and the 49ers are probably the best defense. Even though they dominated last week, but they didn't get any defensive touchdowns, which is why defense can definitely be random at times. But that's where I'm kind of looking at defense this week. But that's what I like as of now. I'll be back Friday to post a final look. But thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You can like the video if you enjoyed, and good luck this week.